Today, I want to talk about the work we have left to do to protect one group of people whose human rights are still denied in too many parts of the world today. In many ways, they are an invisible minority. They are arrested, beaten, terrorized, even executed. Many are treated with contempt and violence by their fellow citizens, while authorities empowered to protect them look the other way, or too often even join in the abuse. They are denied opportunities to work and learn, driven from their homes and countries, and forced to suppress or deny who they are to protect themselves from harm. I am talking about gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender people. Human beings born free and given, bestowed equality and dignity, who have a right to claim that, which is now one of the remaining human rights challenges of our time.
The lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender population is being abused in many places throughout the world today. According to Amnesty International, the human rights of these individuals are being violated in a variety of ways, including execution by the state, denial of employment, housing, or health services, loss of custody of children, denial of asylum, rape and otherwise torture in detention, threats for campaigning for the LGBT human rights cause, and regular subjection to verbal abuse.
The primary reason for the abuse of these people seems to be religion. The texts of the three Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, all express opposition towards homosexuality. It is important to note, though, that not all members of these religions support violence against the LGBT population. There are advocates in the various religions for the human rights of these people and all people. Though the beliefs that have led to these violations are derived from religions, government officials have used their power to conform the public opinion according to these beliefs and added a malicious undertone, the latter part being the problem. The anonymity that comes with being a part of the mob has significantly contributed to the level to which the violence has risen.
The LGBT human rights abuses seen in Russia have frequently been on the headlines as of late. After the fall of the Soviet Union, Russia changed some of its LGBT laws. The most notable is the decriminalization of homosexual relationships in 1993. Actions against the LGBT population continued, though, including routinely denying permits for pride parades, intimidating and arresting LGBT persons, and condoning anti-LGBT statements by government officials. Anti-gay sentiments were rising throughout 2013, as seen by violence at pride events and hate crimes. The Human Rights Report for Russia tells that in May, one man was attacked by two of his friends to whom he had just confessed being gay. They beat, raped, and murdered him. The friends confessed to the act, but were not charged with hate crime.
Things escalated in 2013 when a law was passed banning the propaganda of non-traditional relationships to minors. The so-called propaganda law effectively criminalizes public assembly and expression in support of LGBT equality, provides heavy fines or a prison term of up to 3 years for violations, and could also result in the suspension of activities of organizations or 15 days in jail plus deportation for foreign offenders. The vagueness of this law allows its use for a variety of acts against the LGBT population.
While Russia's legislation has led to the stifling of LGBT supporters, other countries, such as Uganda, have taken their discriminatory laws further. Uganda is a country which has been, like many African countries, affected by the Western colonization of the continent. This has led to an interesting situation in Uganda. While the country espouses a desire to separate itself from the West, certain social aspects, such as Christianity, have taken a firm hold. Thus, the majority of Ugandans view homosexuality as unfavorable, partly because they consider it immoral, and partly because they consider it as a Western attack on their family lifestyles. The specific bill, signed by President Museveni on February 24, 2014, originally provided for the possibility of capital punishment for those convicted of gay acts, though it was adjusted before it was signed. While no longer containing the death penalty provision, the law provides for life imprisonment for convicted gay people, up to 7 years imprisonment for those who perform same-sex marriage ceremonies, and the possibility of imprisonment for those who reach out to LGBT groups.
President Museveni defended his actions by explaining that gay people were, quote, disgusting, and that his country would not change their views as a result of Western social imperialism. He also enlisted a team of scientists to prove homosexuality was a learned as opposed to hereditary trait, and that it was thus okay to discriminate against them because it was a deliberate choice. While the law does not institute the death penalty, it is seen as evidence of the government's tacit approval of the sometimes violent anti-LGBT actions of its citizens. The international community does not support this bill, and many countries and non-governmental organizations have halted aid with Uganda as a result. Museveni, however, has capitalized on strong Ugandan support for the law, as well as a strong anti-West sentiment, to use the law to his political advantage as the re-election year of 2016 nears.
Not all discrimination, however, is so drastic. Worldwide, homosexuality is only now beginning to be accepted into the mainstream, and it is often met with resistance. The resistance can be religiously motivated or purely a result of social unacceptance. One example of this is something called conversion therapy. Conversion therapy, sometimes referred to as reparative therapy, is the process by which someone attempts to cure themselves of being gay. This can be as simple as camps or therapy discussions with counselors. It can also, however, be much more sinister. In January of this year, a man in China reported that doctors applied electric shocks to his genitals while showing him pornographic films. The man was not coerced into this. He wanted this treatment. When asked why, the man explained that he was trying to see if he could be a normal person, and that he did not want to disappoint his family.
Such is the key problem of LGBT communities worldwide. Homosexuality is viewed, by the majority of the world, as something inherently less than heterosexuality. Thus, some people who are themselves homosexual want to change their sexual orientation so as not to embarrass themselves or their families. This social inequality between heterosexuality and homosexuality is sometimes influenced by the religious beliefs of the country, but is also prevalent in more secularized countries. This desire to fix themselves leads many LGBT people to depression, hopelessness, and a feeling of inadequacy. The problem is especially rampant in LGBT youth, where suicide rates are significantly higher than the general population and bullying is rampant.
While Europe is generally accepting of the LGBT community, the U.S. is not at the same level of acceptance. The U.S. is a country deeply divided over the question of LGBT rights, with some states recognizing same-sex marriage, other states only recognizing civil or domestic unions, and other states banning any form of same-sex partnership. The fight over LGBT acceptance is sure to go on in America. The gruesomeness of reports of Chinese conversion therapy, coupled with the examples of anti-gay legislation in the United States, show how LGBT people can be discriminated against in less graphic or violent ways. As a result, this kind of discrimination often flies under the radar when compared to violent anti-LGBT acts. They both, however, stem from a general unacceptance of the LGBT lifestyle as a viable alternative to the heterosexual lifestyle.
LGBT advocacy and pride events are sponsored by many groups worldwide, such as Moville in Chile, Udon Trust in India, ILGA in Europe, Campaign for Homosexual Equality in the United Kingdom, and Intersex South Africa. These groups have played significant roles in aiding the LGBT cause, but we believe that efforts for change would be more effective if led by a global organization advocating the just treatment of the LGBT population. While groups like Amnesty International work for human rights, they also address many other human rights violations. There are organizations that exist to make changes for very specific causes, like UNICEF, Red Cross, Doctors Without Borders, Greenpeace, International Alliance of Women, and International Work Group for Indigenous Affairs, and we believe that a similar group could and should be made for the LGBT cause.
The road to LGBT justice is long and arduous, but the violations of the human rights of this population demonstrate the importance that we begin this path. The average citizen would not be subjected to the sort of treatment which the LGBT population faces daily, and the discrimination they face cannot be condoned.